Brian Fuller hired, I believe, on Hannibal. The reason I love that, the reason I love that is I always say that this, with the exception of Ginger Snaps, apparently, the script that gets you a job is probably not going to be the script that you sell.
Right.
Because they have to do two different things. Getting the attention of a beleaguered showrunner who is completely overwhelmed with an amount of material, what's going to get our attention is very different from something a studio or network is going to want to buy.
Do you prefer spec pilots or specs of pre-existing shows? Raphael, you tweeted the other day, do not show you a spec BoJack.
Yeah, well, first of all, yeah, you never want to show the showrunner of the show that you're specking their show. That's a bad idea. Because they know their show better than anyone, and they'll be like, this is not what my show is like, you're wrong, you don't get it at all.
Yeah.
But I mean, the trend seems to be in general for spec pilots now. Every once in a while I'll get a spec script for another show. Usually, the comedy side at least, I'm like an hour long.
No, yeah.
I was a lone holdout for a long time. I was like, oh, I'll read anything. And over time I realized, reading a spec pilot for someone else's show, all it does is really show me that they can mimic someone else's voice. It doesn't show that they can mimic my voice, so it's not really helpful to me. And it's also just more fun to read a spec pilot,
Yeah.
Although I've read so many great spec entourages over the years. I've never seen a single moment of that show, by the way, but I've read a ton of spec entourages.
Wow, that's so
I wanted, years ago, when I was trying to get my foot in, I started working on a spec for the Paul Reiser show, which was a show at the time about Paul Reiser, who's washed-up sitcom actor who's trying to figure out what his life was now. But I wanted to go really dark with it, to be like his marriage is falling apart, it's really sad. And I told my manager, I was like, that show is going to get canceled, don't do that, no one knows what that show is. So instead I turned it into BoJack. So your spec could turn into something great.
Wow, well, thanks for your question. Next up, please.
Hello, my name is Robin. I'm a huge Crazy Ex-Girlfriend fan.
Thank you.
So excited to have you here. And
I'm just never on the screen. This is what I've learned about being at the end of this line. Hi.
Oh, you look great. I could see
Thanks.
you. So. My question is actually for all of you, though.
Who has an ego? What? Sorry, what?
Very humble. For everyone. So, given the current political...
Hi, guys.
Well, now my question's going to feel heavy. So, given the current political landscape...
Oh, boy.
Yay.
Yeah.
I notice a lot in TV shows, you see lots of subtle winks, like, make America great again, kind of put in there. In what ways has the current political landscape influenced how you write the show? Either, again, subtle winks to certain things.
Well, it's hard to write the show from the fetal position on the floor.
Thank you for that question, because that's what I wanted to ask and didn't have time to. Sarah, you had many references to Hillary Clinton that you had to pull from.
It would have been funnier if she had won, so we only kept one.
Everything would have been funnier if she
We broke season 2 of The Magicians during the election season. So every morning we'd roll in with our coffee and we would talk about this craziness that we were seeing, and we happened to be writing a show about a group of young people who become kings and queens in this fantasy land and learn about the responsibility of ruling and fuck it up a lot, and also encounter a lot of magical beings that take their power for granted and act like children. And so basically the season is kind of about Donald Trump. And we were pretty on the nose about it. We just thought he would lose. So the tone is a little different than it was. The other thing that's kind of interesting is it's always a thing if you write about rape or abortion, and we have both on The Magicians. But it's become more of a thing in this political climate. There are bills in Oklahoma that say that you have to get permission from the father of the fetus to abort a child. And we have a woman on our show who was for a time pregnant, the product of the rape by a demigod. And so just as I was in the editing room watching it, the show felt different for me.
I thought you meant like a person working.
No, a character. I can confirm no one working on the show has been raped by a demigod, but I know. But anyway, what would have been heavy and human and psychologically difficult to watch, the reason that I write fantasy and horror, really, so we could just talk about the darkness that human beings do to one another and that we carry inside of ourselves. It just became heightened, I think, for everyone, and a little bit more serious because it feels like the progress that our society has made is rolling back a little bit right now. So it also has lent a certain importance to our story that I don't think we were looking for, frankly.
Well, Mark, Doomworld on Legends, you kind of stumbled into a similar art, imitating life, imitating art.
Yeah, I did. In this episode of Doomworld, we had reality has changed, and suddenly the world is in the control of these narcissists who are totally evil. And we always knew we were headed there at the beginning of the year, but admittedly, like many other shows, we kind of thought the world would be different by the time we got here. Although Kenny Shimizu, one of our writers, she wrote a really brilliant line in the episode where Thawne, the main bad guy who's sort of recreated reality, is on the phone and he's like, okay, yes, and golfing your hotel, yes, and give my best to Mel. It's like, sorry, there's only so many times you can say to the president you'll call him back. Again, like many things, it was a lot funnier. Months ago.
Yeah. Now you look like soothsayer, like you know the future.
I think The Simpsons really get.
Yeah, The Simpsons.
Yeah.
That, and by the way, let's talk real quick about BoJack, and it turns out that Mr. Peanut Butter was behind this year's Oscars debacle, right?
Yeah, that was crazy. we put a joke in about messing up the Oscars, and then it got messed up. I watched it and said, that's nuts.
Yeah.
I don't have anything smarter to say.
It's like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Next question, please.
Hi, this question is mostly for Aline, but kind of for Mark.
This is
Very
intriguing.
twos for both of you guys, by the way. My question is, I know we just had our musical crossover with Flash Supergirl. I'd really like to see some sort of musical crossover. Well, I'd really like to see a Crazy Ex-Girlfriend musical crossover with some of my favorite DC CW shows.
Great.
Oh,
Bring it. Send them over. Let's do it.
Since I don't see that happening again with the superhero shows very soon, unless Mark feels very inspired by my question, I was wondering if you guys would have any opportunity to maybe sample some of your other CW.
We've tried. We had Yael Grobglas from Jane the Virgin, who we adore, played a character this year. She was great. And we've tried a couple times to get other CW people onto our show because we're fans, but a lot of them don't shoot in town, and we shoot in LA, so we've had some scheduling issues, but we've tried a few times, and there are a surprising number of people on the CW who do have musical backgrounds and are legit. Yeah, so we've tried, and we'll keep trying.
Thanks for your question. Next up, last question.
Hi guys, thanks so much for being here and sharing all your experience with us. I just have a question of curiosity. How do you get in the headspace going from one show into another show when you care about the show you left, and or if you're working on more than one show at the same time? How do you work that in your head to make each show separate?
Drugs and alcohol.
I think that's a muscle thing. Like, when I started my career, I'd sold this romantic comedy movie, and I was working on a show called Law & Order at the time, and the first half of the day, I was like, I'm going to spend it on Law & Order. The second half of the day, I'm going to work on this romantic comedy, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't go from a murder mystery, even then have lunch, and then write a romantic comedy. But now I can do that within an hour. It's pure, I think it's practice and just training your mind to learn how to make those switches.
Did you say you were working on this show called Law and Order, as if you didn't know what Law and Order is?
I gotta tell you something. I feel so old. And let's just for fun, how many people in the audience, this is gonna make me feel like an idiot, but how many people in the audience have heard of Law and Order?
Where my box go heads up.
How many people were born after Law and Order started airing?
Oh. By the way, how many people were born after Law and Order went off the air? That's really the depressing question.
How many people have been born? Nice.
Well, guys, on that note, thanks, and we're looking forward to what comes next. Hopefully, some new seasons for some of you guys, some finales for others, and anything else.
This is a great audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really great.
So, you guys